I'm going to talk about today is how we have gone about trying to identify what are the molecular pathways that need to be targeted so that we can address some of these unmet clinical needs, which are essentially increase the efficacy of the currently available treatments and reduce bystander toxicity of these current treatments, of these current chemotherapies. So what we did was we did an integrated biology approach where essentially we used both gene expression, we used metabolomics to look at metabolites secreted by the tumor. We looked at all the protein level changes that happen within the tumor, and we integrated all of that. And that is what led us to some of these new pathways and new genes that we've gotten. So I'll quickly take you to what we found. So one such gene that we found is called hexokinase 1. And if you look at these immunohistochemistry slides of group D and group E tumors, the brown tells you that there's a lot of that protein. So you can see that E2F, which is the transcription factor that essentially causes the tumors to aggressively proliferate, that is upregulated, which is not present in healthy control pediatric retina. But hexokinase 1, which is present in the healthy retina, is not present in the tumor tissue. And this is classic, where you can see that there is some healthy retina left in this eye, and that is staining properly for hexokinase, but the tumor tissue doesn't. So what does this gene do? So hexokinase is the first step of glycolysis. It's the enzyme that catalyzes the first step of glycolysis. So essentially, it can reprogram the metabolic circuit within a cell, and that may be a tumor cell, a healthy cell, whichever. So what we've discovered is a new player in the tumor cell metabolism, which possibly could help us control the tumor. So if you look at some of these results, where this is a 3D tumor done in vitro. So this is a retinoblastoma cell line called the VERY-RB1. When you put back the retinoblastoma gene into that, the tumor can no longer grow. If you put E2F2, which is the transcription factor that gets released in absence of retinoblastoma, the tumor becomes even larger. And when you use hexokinase 1, you see results that are similar to putting back retinoblastoma. So this is exciting, but what is getting reprogrammed? So when we talk about metabolic reprogramming, it's all about producing energy. So now the tumor cell wants to produce a lot of energy so that it can grow rapidly. So if you look at these cells, so these are the grape-like clusters that the retinoblastoma cells make. And you can see this green, green is the staining for mitochondria, which produces all the ATP in the cell. It's the powerhouse of the cell. When you add back retinoblastoma gene, then these green signals go down. When you add back hexokinase, you see the same thing. The green signals go down. But if you remove hexokinase even further, it's already low in the retinoblastoma cells. If you remove it even more, you see the green signal go up a little bit more. So what this tells us is that the tumor cell is more dependent on mitochondria and increases the amount of mitochondria within itself to produce more energy. So how is it producing the energy? What are the fuels that it is using? So it turns out, so these are fuel assays that we have done using a technique called the Seahorse technique. Now, energy is produced through the mitochondria using the electron transport chain. And prior to the electron transport chain, these electrons are produced by the tricarboxylic acid cycle. So this is all stuff we read in 6th and 7th grade. So glycolysis, glucose goes in. Now, apart from glucose, there are other energy sources, glutamine and fatty acids. So what these retinoblastoma cells do is they start using fatty acids more then they use glucose. So they use more glutamine as well, but fatty acid dependence is huge in these cells. And the normal retina, it uses more glucose and not as much fatty acids. So the reason for that is that when you digest fatty acids to make energy, you produce 129 ATP per cycle. When you're using glycolysis, you produce only 2. And then when it goes into the electron transport chain, the total is about 34. So obviously, the tumor is very happy eating a lot of fats and producing far more energy than the regular retinal cell would. So this brings us to this unique pathway that we found, where retinoblastoma actually controls hexokinase, and hexokinase controls the energy sensor in the cell, which is AMPK alpha. So to take you further, I'll invite Gagan now to talk about the translational aspect of it. Gagan, you have control.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's working. So see, Dr. Kasturi, Dr. Honavar, and Raksha can really identify, at least all of us, when we treat retinoblastoma, we deal with some mortality. And this is one of the conditions where we have mortality hand. Otherwise, in ophthalmology, we don't see deaths. We may see loss of vision and other things. So anytime you get a patient of retinoblastoma, you just wish before you see the patient, not another D, not another E, ABC will take care. But that's a wish we have at hand, that the patient should not be in an advanced stage. So the moment ARCO came up with this and we've got the preliminary results, as a clinician, you also, okay, how can I use it for patients? How can I help this information make a difference? So when I told her, okay, what next? What do we do next? How fast? So he said, no. It's a long journey. You have to go through a grind. Other work has to be done before you actually do something. So I'm going to present that other work part. After reaching here, what do we do next? So we came to a conclusion that if we target AMPK, we will be able to regulate RB tumor, means we will be able to shrink down the tumor. So how do we do that? We need some molecule, some drug to do. So one of the molecules what we can use is ICAR. So ICAR will activate AMPK, and dorsomorphin is an inhibitor. We are using dorsomorphin only to complete the experiment. It does not have any role in the treatment here. So going further, what we do is, if you see here, this is ICAR, and this is the retinoblastoma cell, very one cell line. Once we treat them with ICAR, you can see the retinoblastoma cells are dying. So it indicates that this is going to kill retinoblastoma cells, whereas dorsomorphin does not. And if you come onto this part of the screen, onto your left, this is a tumor spheroid, which we showed earlier. It's a model to mimic the retinoblastoma tumor. So when we give topotecan, you can see the shrinkage which is there in the tumor spheroid. It's like a nuclear bomb, because it's a anti-cancer drug. It really acts fast and it's destroying all the cell. In ICAR, you can see there is a reduction in size, but it is not as much as with topotecan. So it's working, but it is still a little less effective. So once we have this, we also think of terms that, okay, how can we enhance the effect of ICAR? Or can we combine topotecan and ICAR? How does it work? So to find out an answer to that question, we do something called checkerboard assay. So you can see here, we are using topotecan and ICAR. And in a checkerboard assay, along x-axis and y-axis, you have a decreasing dilution. So you go and calculate an FIC1 value, which is here. And on your right, if you see that FIC1 value will tell you whether the drug is a synergistic, additive, or antagonistic. So in case of topotecan and ICAR, FIC1 value is 0.75, which indicates these drugs have an additive effect. So we can use both of the drugs in 50% of dosage to have an effect. So basically, the topotecan dosage comes down by half, the ICAR dosage comes down by half. So to go further now, this is all in lab. So we have done different experiments. What next? Next is, obviously we need animal. So we use a rabbit model here. In a rabbit xenograft, we immunosuppress the model, immunosuppress the rabbit by using cyclosporin A, and then we inject the very one cells into the eye. And after injection, it will form the tumors. Once the tumors are formed, we treated it in 4 groups. So group A was untreated as control. Then we had treatment with topotecan, treatment with ICAR alone, and treatment with topotecan and ICAR as a combination, which we called the additive combination. And after this, at around 70 days, the rabbit is sacrificed and histopathological examination is done. So these are the results in the rabbit experiment. This first one is the retinoblastoma tumor being formed. This is an OCT of rabbit. And when you use topotecan in half the dose, you can see the tumor shrinks in size, but it is not completely gone. Whereas topotecan in the 100% dose, the tumor is gone. if we combine ICAR and topotecan, you can also see that there is a near total resolution of the tumor, though not complete in this case. But the interesting part here is, look at this histopathological cut section. You see that the retinal architecture is preserved. This is topotecan and ICAR. And this is topotecan alone. You can see, though the tumor has been killed, it has also caused plenty of other damage, and the retinal architecture is also getting damaged. So this really brings us to the thing that, okay, ICAR will help us protect the retinal pigment epithelium for the damage, which was shown by Dr. Honawar also in case of melphalan, what he showed. So it will kind of reduce the toxic effect of chemotherapy. And this is what you can see here is untreated retinal pigment epithelial cell. And this, when we treat with topotecan, you can see the damage topotecan is causing to the RPE cells. So this is a toxicity which we want to reduce to make treatment better. And going with this, we also checked out with another molecule. So we have something called cationic antimicrobial peptides. They are naturally acting peptides which work against the bacterial cell wall. So they are negatively charged, and they are going to work on the cell wall which is positively charged. So and then kind of destroy the cell wall and cause cell lysis. Now, interestingly, RB cell retinoblastoma tumor also has a positive cell wall. The cell wall has a positive charge. So the cap can work against retinoblastoma. And we devised an experiment to check for that. And if you see here, these are the untreated retinoblastoma spheroids, a kind of what we shows. These are spheres, and these are retinoblastoma tumor. With topotecan, again, they are all nuked. They are all disrupted, gone, and it's like everything gone. But here we are seeing again with HC3 and HC5. These are two prototype cap molecules where you see the tumor is slowly shrinking in size. And we did further experiment where we found that this can also work synergistically along with topotecan. That was additive. So this again gives another selective treatment targeting retinoblastoma cells, and this one will spare the retinal pigment epithelium. So, the chemotoxicity will come down. So these two drugs basically answer some of the questions which we had earlier, that can we sensitize the tumors to, can we, prevent the toxicity of chemo drugs to other medication, and that we can see that these drugs are helping us in doing that. And can we also personalize the medication? So, we can use these medication in different combination based on certain other factors and have an additional thing which is going to work there. Most important here is what this presentation, when me and Arko are doing to Raksha, is the point that we are able to do this because there's a constant discussion and exchange of ideas between us, the clinical team, and the research team. So, we have lots of questions. We see something unusual, we discuss with the research team. They find some finding, and then we see, okay, how can we check it in clinical, and how really we can, bring it down to clinical practice. The whole thing here would be that if we want to personalize medication, a very intense collaboration between the clinical and research team is required to really help these patients have a better life and better survival.